Of those three, our first candidate to speak is going to be Sandra Kurt. Sandra, please come up.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for inviting us to speak with you today.
I'm sorry.
Normally, we don't get 7 minutes, so I'm guessing that most of us will not reach that limit. But you never know, we might get long-winded. It's a risk. My name is Sandra Kurt. I currently serve you on Summit County Council. I'm an incumbent. I was appointed in 2011 and then run for re-election and was selected by the voters in 2012 to finish the term. And now I'm running for my first 4-year term. A few things are a little bit different about me that I think make me especially well qualified to continue to work for you. 3 main things, though. Number 1, I'm an engineer. Number 2, I served on Akron City Council before I was on County Council. And number 3, just kind of my own personal perspective and the way I look at the world based on my life experience. So I'll talk about each of those in a little bit more detail. So number 1, I'm an engineer. So what kind of engineer am I? Well, I'm an industrial engineer. And if you don't know what they do, or what we do, is we find ways to make processes more efficient, to save time and save money. And I think that's a good perspective for government. And with a technical background, I'm the only person on county council or of the candidates with a technical background. What that does for me is it helps me understand the issues around infrastructure and things like stormwater and roads and bridges that we deal with on the county council. I chair the Public Works Committee, and so I work a lot with the county engineer on things like roads and bridges and stormwater. And I work with the Department of Environmental Services on things like sewer and water. And both of those groups have a lot of engineers working for them, and they really appreciate having me to work with because we speak the same language. They don't have to try to use non-technical terms to talk with me about it. And then I can kind of translate for my colleagues on council and for constituents. That works out really nicely. So in addition to being an engineer, as I said, I served on Akron City Council. I was the Ward 8 council person. And as anybody in local government can tell you, if you're a ward or a district council person, your job is constituent service. And that's what I did for Ward 8. I made sure their streets got plowed, potholes got filled. I even got a few calls about the neighbor's dog pooping in their yard, things like that you respond to, and you find ways to make solutions happen for people. And I bring that level of constituent service. Additionally, when I was on Akron City Council, I was on the Health Committee. And that was when we merged the County Health Department with the Akron City Health Department and the Barberton Health Department. And as we went through that process, a lot of the city employees were concerned because their entire career had been with the city. And this was going to be a big change for them. So they had a lot of questions. We worked with the County Health Department, got those questions answered, and tried to make it as smooth as possible. And what that allowed for was that none of the city workers got laid off. They all got jobs. And I've talked with a few folks since then, and I asked them how it's been going, since it's been a couple of years now. And the people that I've talked to have said that they actually like it, because the county health department does more things, does a wider variety of things, and they're actually able to do things with the county that they weren't able to do with the city. And the point of all that is, if we go forward into more consolidations like that, I have both the city and the county perspective to try to help make those things go more smoothly. And then finally, my kind of personal perspective. So as a woman engineer, a non-traditional field, I was usually the only woman on a project or in a meeting. And so I know what it's like to be kind of the odd man out, so to speak, and to be concerned that your voice isn't heard. And so I'm a big advocate to make sure that everybody's voice is heard, regardless of what it is we're discussing or making decisions about. Additionally, I grew up in Iowa, and my parents farmed when I was little, and then the town that I grew up in, we moved into town, was about 3,500 people. So I have both a rural perspective and understand those concerns, but also having lived in Akron for 26 years and being on city council, I understand urban concerns. So, especially as an at-large council person whose job it is to work for the whole county, I have both of those perspectives, and I've been able to utilize those. And you can ask some different township trustees that I've worked with. I've been working with Norton and Copley and Barberton on their watershed conservation district that they're trying to set up. And so I've got a really good relationship with township trustees. Additionally, there was a trustee in Twinsburg Township. He was concerned because they were getting a new bridge put in. And it was going to happen this spring, and he was worried because there was a small business owner, a florist, that a lot of their traffic comes across that bridge. And they didn't want the bridge shut down before Memorial Day, because that's when he got a lot of his business. So I worked with the county engineer and the project team and went to the project meetings to make sure that we could keep that bridge open until after Memorial Day. So again, that's kind of the constituent service and personal perspective that I have. And then finally, the other part of my personal perspective is I'm the youngest person running for council. And I'm not that young. But being the youngest person, I'm very familiar with technology. I'm on social media a lot. I use that to reach out to constituents to try to increase the communication that we have. I also understand, I think, a lot of what younger folks are looking for when they're looking for places to live, where it comes to cultural opportunities, parks and rec, fitness, all those kinds of things. I think I have that perspective a little bit more, and I can help reach out to those folks and encourage them to come here. So the three main things, as I said, that I bring to working for you is I'm an engineer, I have city council experience as well as county council, and my own personal perspective as far as how to best serve the citizens of Summit County. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra, and I'm sorry I didn't mention that you are an incumbent. Our next candidate running is an incumbent also, Bill Romer. Bill Romer?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Bill Romer. It's a pleasure to be here. I've been here before. In fact, I've been all around the county for the last 4 years. I believe it's very important to make commitments and then keep commitments. One of the commitments I made 4 years ago is, if I were elected, I would donate half of my salary to charity. And I have continued to do that. You might have seen that. One of the charities happens to be the Akron Rotary Camp. A friend of mine's daughter is developmentally disadvantaged. She says that is the highlight of her year, is that week she spends in the summer at the Rotary Camp. Based upon that, I've talked to the Akron Rotary, also now yourselves, and I'm again going to donate to the Akron Rotary Camp. From a Summit County Council perspective, one of the commitments I made is that I would travel to each of the 31 communities in Summit County every year. And I have done that. In fact, I've done a huge amount spending time in the Nordonia area, in Northfield Center, Northfield Village, Sagamore Hills. I spend a lot of time in Macedonia also. I go to the council meetings, I go to the township trustee meetings to make sure I know the issues that are facing the elected leaders, facing the constituents, so that when I vote, I'm able to vote on an informed basis. From my background, I was director of sales for AT&T, a very technology-based business. In fact, at one time I was a Cisco certified sales engineer. But moreover, I was fortunate enough to be able to retire. And I said, I'm going to try to give back to the community. Initially, what I did is I taught, I tutored. In fact, I tutor a boy from Nordonia schools right now. He's now a senior and doing very well. But as far as giving back to the community, I was president of the baseball league. I was the president of a Slovak fraternal organization. And then I was asked to run for Summit County Council. And I said that, I'm going to give it my all. I'm going to work as hard as I can. I'm going to make sure that I can give back to the constituents in Summit County. And I've done that. I said that I would take no benefits. And I don't. It saves the county about $10,000 a year. From an experience perspective, I am a certified public accountant. So I bring that financial background. In fact, the Akron Beacon Journal, in their endorsement, I think they called me, it was something like the independent voice for fiscal restraint in Summit County. So I try to work very hard to make sure that I spend tax dollars appropriately, to make sure I'm aware of the issues that we're facing. I also have an MBA from Case Western Reserve, so I can bring that expertise also to my processes. I really, really love serving the residents of Summit County. I've done it for the last 4 years. I hope I can do it for 4 more years, and I would appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Our next candidate is also an incumbent. Please welcome Eileen Shapiro.
Good afternoon, everybody. For those of you I haven't met, I have been here before. My name is Eileen Shapiro. I am Summit County Council at large. I am also president of Summit County Council. And during my tenure, this is my 8th year, so I've served 2 terms on council. I've worked really hard to move our community forward. So I believe it's my job to get up every day and think about all the positive things and to channel my energies towards those things that will help build our communities, our neighborhoods, and our businesses. My background is that of both an entrepreneur and a corporate executive. so I know what it's like to break down the boxes, stock the shelves, meet a payroll, and pay taxes. I've also been at the corporate executive table of First Merit as their chief sales officer when it was a $10 billion corporation and drove revenue for the entire corporation through all of their lines of business and throughout Northeast Ohio. I am committed to a long-term vision for Summit County, and I will continue to focus on wise financial management, both in the short term and in the long term, and supporting safe communities for our neighborhoods, our families, and our youth, and economic and workforce development activities that increase our economy, increase our incomes, and expand our talent pool right here in Summit County. Wise financial management in the short term has meant managing through one of the most difficult economic times that we have had. Compound that with the local government funds that have been cut at the state level to the tune of $7 million a year for the last 3 years. Yet we have managed to cut our overall budget by $100 million, our employees by over 750, and still maintain quality services to our communities and maintain strong bond ratings at the same time. I've worked with our communities to attract businesses from countries like Israel and Finland and China. I've also worked with our local communities, all 31 of them, to work on their plans and help them move their communities forward. I'm vice chair of the land bank. This was started about 2 years ago in the foreclosure crisis. We have taken down over 900 homes so far and have another 100 on the demolition list. What that does is take down these abandoned and vacant properties and turn them into useful land so homes can be built, businesses can be started, green spaces can be built and can be created, and in turn increase property values and in turn the revenue to our schools, which is important. Education at all levels is vitally important, but to get an education, the outcome needs to be meaningful employment. I'm sorry, I got a cold. Meaningful employment. So just to be educated doesn't mean anything unless we can create jobs for those people, okay? It is our companies that create those jobs, but yet we still need the talent pool that will help us attract those companies to our communities, those companies with new ideas and new technologies that will help us create the future, and that is vital to our viability as a community. For the past 7 years as Planning and Economic Development Director, I've worked on a variety of projects from one corner of this community to the other, and I'm very proud of the work that we've done. For me, I can see the future. I can see where we are going. I know that if somebody is losing their home or is struggling with their business, they're facing challenges. Government is not the answer to everything, but in the ways that we can help, we should be helping. You know, lots of people talk about doing things. I actually get things done. From establishing our land bank to being a co-founder of the Women's Endowment Fund, from chairing our Green Task Force to the consolidation of our building department and our health department, as you heard Sandra talk about earlier. County Council has done a really nice job of stewarding over the last few years our way to the future. And I hope that you will allow me to be able to continue that for the future. When we talk about communities, we also need to talk about safe communities. So I'm going to do my little pitch here for issue 12. Are any of you familiar with what issue 12 is? It will be on the November ballot. This is a safety issue. It is $1 quarter on $100. We have done a great job of managing. However, now all of our communities, all 31 of them, will be facing some significant challenges both from the jails and our 800 megahertz system and our 911 updates that need to be made. We have no choice on some of these. They must be made. If this sales tax, which is the quarter on $100, or 0.25%, does not pass, each community will be responsible for their own monies to come up with, which will strain public service in many areas even more, putting perhaps fire and police people out of work. So we ask you to look on November 4th and support issue 12. We'll do some more research, but I wanted to bring it to your attention. I do hope that I can count on your support on November 4th also, so we can keep this community working forward. And I thank you for your attention today. Thanks, everybody.
thank you. No vote here. Wow, this is a first. I'd like to thank you for coming in, and at this time, we're going to open questions for the floor, but we're going to go in reverse order, and then we'll go back and forth that way the rest of, if you can keep your response to about a minute. And do we have any questions on the floor? Yes, Sylvia.
Yes, I do. In fact, Mrs. Shapiro brought up one of the questions I have, which, I'm sorry, I'm going to get closer so to make sure you can hear. The 1/4% income tax, would you tell me how we first came up with the idea of financing Akron U's stadium and then changed our minds about doing that and changing the focus of the tax? What led to the first decision to put it on the ballot with that on, and what led to the next decision to take it away? And we did have the law director for Summit County here last week, and she did a very good job explaining the situation now. I am interested also in how we see the general fund monies that are going into, that basically are going to be collected as part of this 1/4%, how we see those being used, other than in the jails, which I understand, and in the 100 radio. So, all three of you, I'd like to have an answer.
You want to go first? Okay, let me see if I can remember all that you asked. Okay. First of all, I think it was about how we came up with the sales tax to begin with. Okay. The initial thought was the sales tax, we are mandated to go on for 1/4%. We cannot go on the ballot for less than that. We did not have county needs for that. There's been a long time conversation that county needs that would have amounted to the $20 million a year that would have gone on. So there have been for a good 10 years conversations about building an arena downtown, okay? This would bring in entertainment. I don't know if any of you, and I don't know that I can keep to the minute on this, but if any of you have been to downtown Cleveland, but I went up to see Cher a couple of months ago. The restaurants were packed, the parking lots were packed, the arena was full of people. I'm sorry, I'd like a little piece of that for Summit County. So that was what was at least in my thinking. I'm looking forward to bring and attract the youth that we were talking about before to Summit County. So as having a desire to have an arena downtown, and I want to clarify, it was not a University of Akron arena. It was a Summit County arena. The University of Akron was going to bring about 1/3 of the events that needed to be to that. Did they have some skin in the game? Absolutely, okay. But it was not a University of Akron arena. And most of us would agree that you'd want an anchor tenant in if you could get one. Unfortunately, as we moved forward, we understood that the community did not have an appetite for spending money at this time for such a venue, especially engaged with the University of Akron. So we revisited it. There had been conversations about whether or not it should be a sunset tax or not be a sunset tax. We went back and forth at the beginning. So at the end, when we removed the arena, because we listened to the constituents that were out there, when we removed the arena, we moved it to a 10-year time frame. So it will sunset after 10 years. We anticipate, however, that the monies through that will probably suffice for our jail, stretch hopefully to 20 years. We can't foresee that far in the future, but those monies will move on farther. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
I just wanted to see what your thinking was,
Okay.
why it started and why you ended where you have. I understand what you're saying.
Okay, thank you.
Bill, you're
Oh,
next.
sorry, Bill.
With this, you have 2 minutes.
Okay.
And hopefully I won't need that. Relative to issue 12, initially I was very opposed. In fact, I ran the numbers. I'm a CPA. I looked at the numbers. I said, this isn't right. We would have been spending $161 million of taxpayer money to fund a downtown Akron arena. I think an arena is needed. I didn't think that arena was needed based upon a tax increase across Summit County. I opposed that. I also opposed the fact that there was no sunset provision. It would have represented initially 2/3 of $1 billion of transfer from the private sector to the public sector. I did not believe that that was appropriate. There also wasn't a contract. That arena was to be given after 23 years to the University of Akron. There was no contract. There was a memorandum of understanding that I didn't believe was appropriate. So I was one of the 2 people that voted against placing the tax increase with the arena on the ballot. In addition, I had done my own survey. I knew that there was opposition, strong opposition across Summit County to that, and what that would have done is that would have disadvantaged our safety forces. I spent a day in jail just to make sure that I knew what the deputies faced. And yes, they did let me out at the end. But I wanted to know what the deputies faced on a daily basis. We need additional deputies. Given the changes that have been made, the fact that the tax is sunset after 10 years, the fact that the arena has been removed, I'm now a strong supporter. It's because I see that 45% of the funds will go directly to the jail to hire both additional deputies and civilian workers. 30% of the funds will go toward 800 megahertz radios and enhanced 911. And to your question, 25% will go to the general fund. In total, about 70% of the general fund also goes to public safety. So in total, about 92.5% of the funds that would be raised through the sunset tax will go toward public safety in some manner. One other thing though, stormwater is a huge issue across Summit County. Residents in northern Summit County, southern Summit County, every community I meet with on an annual basis or more have that same issue. This will allow us to dedicate additional funds to stormwater mitigation. So there's additional benefits beyond the public safety that we've already talked about. Thank you.
Okay, three different people, you have three slightly different interpretations. The initial proposal was brought to us by the administration, so we were not in those conversations about what shall be incorporated into it. And our job was to look at what was presented to us and determine whether or not it was adequately prepared for the voters to make a decision on. When it comes to an arena, I'm kind of in the middle in that I also see what an arena can bring to downtown Akron. And to me, especially this summer downtown, when the Rubber Ducks sold out, when we had concerts at Lock 3 that were full, you know, as Eileen was saying, the restaurants were hopping, you know, there's people are paying for parking, like just in a lot of different ways, it makes the community more vibrant, it gives people something to do. And right now, because a lot of those venues are outdoor venues, we can't capitalize on the same energy year round. And an arena would allow us to do that. Now, at the same time, you know, it became very clear after it was proposed that the public did not want to support an arena at this time. They didn't want their tax money going to that. And I understand that. And so if there is going to be an arena downtown, definitely more homework needs to be done. We need to understand perhaps a more equitable way to fund it. There just needs to be more work done before we can actually go forward with something like that. So there's that. When it comes to, we've already talked about the safety forces and how the money's going to that. The jail, experts have determined that the jail is at least 30 people short in staffing, and so we need to replace those people. Otherwise, it's not safe for the inmates, it's not safe for the deputies that are there. Additionally, the money, there will not be money actually dedicated to stormwater. What the money going into the general fund allows us to do is to shift to some priorities and perhaps maybe dedicate some money to a study to look at the stormwater issues. Summit County is really unique in that the Continental Divide actually comes right through Summit County, which you think of the Continental Divide out west, but it actually comes through here as well. And within the city of Akron, it kind of follows Exchange Street. That everything north of there flows into to Lake Erie, everything south of there flows into the Ohio River and eventually down to the Gulf of Mexico. So, and the two watersheds have very different dynamics, and it's going to take a lot of money to study it, to understand how the water flows, where the water flows. And now with the kind of storms we have, they're so localized that every storm kind of results in different kind of problems. So it takes a lot of time to study that, and hopefully we'll be able to generate some money from the sales tax increase to support that study. Additionally, some money is going to go towards capital improvements. One of the main things is the jail needs a new HVAC system, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. Usually those systems don't run 24/7 because it's businesses or other things where you can do maintenance on weekends or at night. But with the jail, it obviously runs all the time. And so it hasn't been able to be maintained as you would hope. But even so, it's lasted longer than it should, but that needs to be replaced. So that's another item where some of this money is going to go. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next question, Bob, did you have a question? Okay. Anybody else have a question? Really?
Dave, I'll ask one more.
Okay.
Just because everybody seems shy. You know, I know Bill Romer because he's been out here a lot. So I'm really asking this of Sandra Kurt and Eileen Shapiro. How much have you been out here in the Nordonia Hills? And the issues in Nordonia Hills, how familiar you are with those. Give us some examples maybe for a minute or something.
Well, to be honest, I have not spent a lot of time in Nordonia Hills. And part of that is I tend to go where people are having concerns or have issues. And so I go where people are calling me out to say, hey, we need some help with this. Could you come look at this? Or even we want to show something off to you, you know, and maybe you can take advantage of some successes that we've had at other places. So I haven't been called about issues here, so I haven't been here. I'm happy to look at your successes. I accept any invitation I get, so not to put the burden back on you, but.
We'll invite you to Macedonia then.
All right, that sounds good, that sounds good. But that's a valid question, I appreciate you asking it.
This is a big county, and we don't get to all of the council meetings that we would like to, or the township meetings that we would like to. Generally, our relationship, at least my relationship, is with either the township trustees or the mayors, touching base with them, having lunch with them, because it's very difficult to cover the turf that we have to cover. However, as things arise, that's why we're a band of 11 people, so that when something comes up, we count on our colleagues that are close to the district, because there are 8 district people, as well as the 3 at-large people, who are really close to the communities, and that as they bubble up, or the issues bubble up, they are brought to our attention, besides if we get our own phone calls that are out there. So I'm not as in-depth knowledgeable about Nordonia Hills. Obviously, I'm very familiar with Mayor Cookta, and some of the issues that you've had up here, and some of the conflicts that you've had up here, although I have not been necessarily a party to those.
Right.
Okay.
No, we had nothing to do with it, I can guarantee.
Thank you. I have regularly been in the entire Nordonia area. Just last week, I attended a council meeting at Northfield Village. A question came up relative to taxation at the Racino. I was able to get an answer and get that back to the person that had asked it. I was, I believe, the only public official that was at the meetings in Northfield Center and Sagamore relative to the policing contracts, the sheriff, the increases that have occurred in the sheriff's rates that they're going to be charging Northfield Center. As far as Macedonia, I love your council meetings. They're very entertaining because I sit on the opposite side of the dais, and I'm able to, by doing that and going to every community across Summit County, know the issues that are facing the elected officials and residents. So it's something that I think I should do as an at-large representative, and I try to do that on a full-time basis if at all possible.
Thank you, and we have time for one question with short answers. Jim?
In regards to the 800 megahertz radio system, you say that if this doesn't pass, the community is going to be responsible for that money themselves. They already are responsible for that themselves.
No,
Are they not?
no, they're not.
Okay, because I know we've replaced an awful lot of radios here in the Sagamore Hills area through grants, that won't enable. So those grants really aren't costing us a whole lot of money. Why would we want to pay more money for them?
Well, it's not a matter of wanting to, it's a matter that they are not going to support the system that is out there now. No, we have no option. What the system that it's running on now will not be supported, I believe, after 2015.
Okay.
So there will be hard dollars that will need to be spent in order to replace that, okay? And so I don't have a crystal ball. I cannot tell you if there will be grant monies for that or not. We have replaced a lot of the radios that go along with that. I agree with you. We've seen them all across Summit County. But the system itself that we operate on will no longer be supported, and that needs to be replaced.
And who's not going to support that anymore?
The company, Motorola.
Motorola.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
so
it's
Motorola-
not something we're saying, hey, gee, we want something new. It's Motorola is saying, "Nyeh, we're not doing it anymore, so you better figure out what you're gonna do, Summit County.
Okay, and so who are we going with in the future now?
I don't know the answer to that question, to be honest with you.
Motorola.
I don't know the anscer to that question. Sandra or Bill, do you know?
Let's just talk about this very briefly. What we're looking to do is upgrade the 800 megahertz radios to something called a P25 standard. The current radios will not be supported by Motorola through, I believe, the end of 2017. Communities would then have, if this were not to pass, would then have the responsibilities of upgrading their radios and either hopefully getting grants, but a lot of those grants that were available through Homeland Security are not available now, or paying for it themselves. The communities across Summit County, it's multiple millions of dollars. What the upgrade does is, it does a couple things. One, you move to a supported radio system that's going to be supported by the manufacturer. The second thing it does is, it allows intercommunication between the various entities. So if there's a major event that occurs at the Racino, as an example, and multiple departments have to respond, both fire and police, they would be able to communicate effectively. And if you have other agencies that are responding also. There was a situation, as I was told, with the woman that went missing in the national park, where they didn't have the ability necessarily to have all of the agencies that were searching speak together. So this will address that, plus you have the issue of not being supported and having to move to that P25 standard.
Just to throw in my 2 cents. Basically, the issue is one that I think people can relate to when it comes to their own personal computers or their own phones, which is that you won't be able to buy the parts anymore for it, right? So the radio system simply will not be able to continue operating because you can't buy replacement parts, and then you're kind of stuck. So that's my only concern with the fact that we now have the sales tax increase sunset, is because, as we know, technology is changing all the time, right? The laptop that you had 4 years ago probably is not one that you want today. And so my concern is that, so we're going to upgrade to the P25, but then what's going to happen, this sunsets in 10 years. What happens 10 years down the road? Are we going to need to do this again? And if so, I guess we'll need to come back and estimate the cost and come back and ask, for the sales tax again. But that's what this is the same kind of technology thing that we all have to deal with in our daily lives. But it's just broader, on a bigger impact, because it's countywide and affects all the smaller communities that don't have the funds to really build to create that kind of fund for that kind of expensive ones.
We might also add that if you're interested, there is a breakdown of which each community, I don't have it with me today, but there is a breakdown by community and entity of what that hard dollar cost would be to that community.
No, I saw what that was
Okay.
from last week, and
Oh,
that's,
Sam, yeah, Deb Matz was here.
believe me, they're gonna get tons more of that out of us.
But this time, I'd like to thank the candidates for coming in. Thank you. And just a reminder, next week, we have the 14th congressional representatives coming in. Please attend and support the candidates as they come in and talk to us. Thank you. We're adjourned.